Hey guys, are we live? Give me a second here. Can you guys hear me okay? Hello, hello. Welcome to the think tank. I don't know. So, if you guys were with me a few minutes ago, you'll know that we got the boot. So, I guess we're not allowed to talk about you. So, I'll see how we're doing. Hey, Shauna, good to see you. We just got booted out of the last one, so we thought, I thought, let's try um, Chris Watts. I have been taking a look at this case for the last little while, and it's one of those ones where I just think, am I missing something? Is there more to this? I just haven't figured that one out yet. It's just, it's puzzling, right? I know a lot of people are saying, okay, that's not going to work for me either. A lot of people are saying that, let's see here if that helped. Sorry, you guys, what a bizarre start to a stream, right? I'm a little discombobulated after the last one. Yeah, he that can't be named Shauna. Yeah, I guess not. Like it was literally under 2 minutes and they had that feed gone. So if you were waiting for that, I apologize. I ended up having to privatize it. The powers that be. So, I have been looking at the Watts case here again. Like I was saying a second ago, a lot of people are talking about whether or not, his girlfriend, Nicole, could have been there. Let me know what your thoughts are because I'm really undecided. So this is 31 pages, and it's basically an update back in 2019 of basically all the intelligence that they had collected by that time. So I've got that. And if there's some time, there's also, we sent pretty, there's some pretty interesting text messages that if I am allowed, powers that be say it's okay, we'll go through that as well. Yeah, I don't think she was there, but I 100% believe she was the catalyst. Yeah. I myself, like I said, I'm undecided at what it is I am seeing. So go over here and let's take a look. So this was from on the 18th of February 2019. It started at 8 a.m. and they talked until 4 p.m. So pretty long day. So the agency is the CBI in Denver and then their case file number. And there might be certain parts. I was just kind of looking at this document in depth when that stuff kind of came up about, ebb and hopefully no flow. I was I kind of switched gears and jumped over to that because I thought, whoa, that's interesting, all those files coming out. But me. So I'm going to have a little bit of coffee and then we'll get into this. Okay, February 18th, 2019 at approximately 7:45 a.m. Colorado Bureau of Investigation, known as the CBI, Tammy Lee, along with Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, and Special Agent, or SA, Graham Coder, and Frederick Police Department Detective Dave Baumhover. Hoover arrived at Redacted. The purpose for our visit to the Redacted was to interview Christopher Lee Watts. Now, this was May 16th. No, he was born, obviously, May 16th, 1985, concerning the unaliving of his pregnant wife and two daughters, as well as to discuss other individuals who have claimed to have an affair with Watts during his marriage. Others. This report documents a follow-up interview conducted with Christopher Lee Watts, who was sentenced in November of 2018 to 3 consecutive life terms and in prison for 84 plus years without the probability or possibility of parole. We've seen some pretty bizarre things as far as parole and what have you. People that you think will never get out are all of a sudden let out and they're doing bad things again. So, Willie, I sure hope not, but I'll never say never. So at the time, he was 33 years old. Of course, just had his birth date as May 16th, 1985. So he had a really good job. He was a field coordinator in the oil and gas industry. They make the big bucks. So relationship, business location, 2825 Saratoga Trail, Frederick, Colorado, 80516 US of A. And his home phone number at the time. Narrative begins on the following page. Yeah, I was a little thrown off even at the start of this stream. If I just disappear again, please let me know. I appreciated that, Dandy. Yeah. So, synopsis. On February 18th, 2019, at approximately 7:45 a.m., CBI agent Tammy Lee, along with, and we just went over that stuff, was to interview Christopher Lee Watts concerning the M of his pregnant wife and daughters. The report documents a follow-up interview conducted with Christopher Lee Watts, who was sentenced in November of 2018 to 3 consecutive life terms in prison, plus 84 years plus, without the possibility of parole, as it should be. Action taken. They're going to make it, yeah. This is all repeat again. Shanann and their 2 young daughters, Bella, who was age 4, and Celeste, or Cece, was 3 in August of 2018. In addition, information was provided during the investigation to suggest Watts may have had, again, additional affairs during his marriage to Shanann. Ooh, with a male named Trent Bolt and a female named Amanda McCann. Ooh, Watts was unable to be interviewed about Bolt and McCann prior to being moved out of state by the Colorado Department of Corrections. Alrighty, what is this all about? What the hell? So I, who have not been in this case for as long as a lot of people, I'm not sure. Did you know about all of that? That's new to me. Upon the arrival to prison, we were escorted to a large open room which the staff referred to as the computer room. The room contained empty cubicles with chairs, no computers, which lined the walls. We activated our covert digital recording devices and also several covert video recording devices. Watts was brought into the room a short time later, and we asked him if he remembered us. Watts looked puzzled for a brief second and then indicated he recalled who we were. We asked Watts how he was doing, and he said good, and asked how they were doing. Watt said he did not expect to see us. S.A. Coder initiated the interview with Watts and explained we were not there to speak with him about an open investigation. S.A. Coder explained to Watts that his life and situation was unique, and we wanted to fully understand what happened. S.A. Coder asked Watts if he was available to speak with us, and he answered definitely. S.A. Coder told Watts if there was something he didn't want to talk about, that was okay. S.A. Coder told Watts to tell us if he needed to take a break at any point. Brutal. Okay, everyone's doing good? All right. So Watts explained he enjoyed being in the redacted prison much more than the Weld County Jail in Colorado. Watts said when he was in jail in Colorado, other inmates would constantly yell at him from their cells, giving Watts advice on how he should unalive himself in his cell and what the other inmates would do to him given the chance. Ooh, can you imagine? I mean, people that harm kids, not accepted. They usually don't make it long, from what I believe I've seen in the past. Watts said everyone in the jail knew him and why he was there. Watts explained the jail had to lock down all of the inmates just for him to walk down a hallway. Watts said that he never actually saw any other inmates in the Weld County Jail, but he could hear them yelling at him. Can you imagine how scary that would be? I'd find that absolutely terrifying. Like, what? But, no sympathy. I'm just thinking terrifying. Aw. Watts said he had been unable to call his father, mother, and sister since he'd been incarcerated. Watts said he wasn't sure what his parents were going to say about his sentencing hearing in Colorado and didn't expect them to be present since they had just returned to North Carolina. S.A. Coder asked Watts if we could start to ask him questions, and Watts said, go ahead. S.A. Coder asked Watts if he knew the case was a national story, and Watts said he had learned it after his attorney told him there were people from Australia asking about his case. Watts said he received numerous letters with no return addresses, but he was only allowed to read them and could not keep the letters in his cell. Watts said there was a person who lived in Broomfield, Colorado, who wrote to him 4 times a week and wanted to come visit him. Watts said he also had people write him to tell him he was a monster. I'd be one of them. So with regard to, yeah, what the heck? Trent Bolt. S.A. Coder explained the investigation revealed numerous people who have claimed to have known, dated, or had relations with him. S.A. Coder asked Watts if he had heard about the people claiming to have had affairs with him, and he said yes. Watts said his attorney, John Walsh, told him a male from Wyoming, Trent Bolt, claimed to have had an affair with him. S.A. Coder explained Bolt's claimed that Watts denied knowing or having a relationship with him. Watts said he was shown a picture of Bolt by his attorney and did not recognize him. Watts claimed he had never been to Wyoming and indicated he never had any gay experiences or interests in the past. Bolt claimed to have met him on an app called WhatsApp, and he had never heard of it before. You know, the crazies are going to come out. They're going to be all over the place. But is there truth? I don't know. So, Detective Baumhover also asked Watts about Amanda McMahon. Watts said he didn't know Mahan. Sorry, guys, I just massacre some of these last names. Detective Baumhover showed Watts a picture of McMahon's driver's license, and Watts advised it was the same photograph shown to him by his attorney, Welsh. Watts said Walsh explained McMahon did claim to have a rendezvous in a Chick-fil-A parking lot. We don't have those in Canada. Watts said he'd only been to one Chick-fil-A in Colorado, and it was located on Broomfield off Highway 7. We asked Watts if he wanted to see Bolt and McMahon charged with charged with a crime if it's warranted, and he said no. Watts said there are always people to take advantage of these situations, and that Bolt and McMahon need to look into themselves to figure out why they did it. Watts said he did not believe charging them with a crime would do any good. I agree with that. Whether or not he knew either one of these people, I have no idea. But I can say that with everything that's going on with him, he probably didn't want to get messed up in any other legal issues. So, with regards to Watts' relationship with Nicole Kessinger, S.A. Coder asked Watts if he felt comfortable telling us if he had affairs with other people, and Watts said yes. Watts said he only had an affair with Nicole Kessinger. S.A. Coder asked Watts if he'd had any one-night stands, and he said no. Around June 1st, 2018, he met Kessinger at work. Anna Darko is who employed him. He had a gas meter that didn't work, and it took it to Kessinger to have it fixed. I do believe she was like a front area worker, if I remember correctly. We'll see if this corrects me. He and Kessinger ran into each other a few times in the office and would chat about work. Around the fourth time meeting Kessinger, he mentioned we moved from North Carolina. Kessinger asked him what he meant by we, and he took out his cell phone and showed her a picture of his daughters. Kessinger also saw a picture of Shanann on his lock screen. Kessinger knew he was married and had children. I don't like women like that. He knew Kessinger lied and said she didn't know he was married. Kessinger was trying to save face. I think she was trying to save face in a lot of different things that she was doing. You know, she would go back to the cops and talk. Did she like the attention? Was she crushing on one of them? Because she was sure trying to kiss butt. Whether she was honest or not beats the actual hell out of me. But she's not a truthful individual, in my opinion. He hopes Kessinger hadn't written to him in a different alias that he does not recognize. He didn't wear a wedding ring at work because it was getting sized. It was too big after he lost weight and it kept falling off. Kessinger texted him one day while he was at work in the field, and their message to each other's other continued. One day, he said Kessinger's text message kind of went to a different level. You see, he was married. I don't like you. I'm just my personal opinion about women that'll do such things. I don't like it. I think if they can sleep with a married man, they're capable of doing anything. Just in my opinion, just my opinion. So Kessinger talked about them meeting up after he returned from a trip with Shanann to San Diego. So we went to San Diego from June 22nd to June 26th, 2018. And after he returned home from San Diego, he and Kessinger met at a park in Thornton, Colorado. Thornton. He and Kessinger continued to see each other almost the entire month of July 2018. His wife and children were not home, and he took advantage of that, I suppose. He initially thought his relationship with Kessinger was just flirting at work, and that's even too much. He wished he would have had worked more in the field, so he never got close to her. When he became a field coordinator, he was forced to spend more time in the office, and he would constantly run into Kessinger. He wished he could talk to Kessinger one last time to apologize to her about what happened and what she went through. What? He didn't know if Kessinger had received counseling or if she had to leave the state due to the publicity of the case. Kessinger refused to talk to Watt's attorney. He hoped Kessinger found normalcy because Anadarko was her dream job. With regards to he loved Kessinger, I felt it was true, he said. Just gaggy. You know what? These people, they're making me they're upsetting me. And we're not even to like even close to the worst part. Mm-mm-mm. He felt like Kessinger pursued him, which was unusual for him. He felt more in control when he was with Kessinger because she would ask his opinion on things and what he wanted to do. Aww. He felt like he could be himself around Kessinger, unlike Shanann. How sweet. The first time he and Kessinger went out, they went to a movie at the Orchard off of 144th. He asked Kessinger if she wanted to see a movie, and she agreed. The movie was sold out, so they walked around for a couple hours and talked. So, can you imagine all the different lies and all that he was telling his wife that month that she was gone? She already knew, Shanann already knew that relationship was in trouble. She was newly pregnant, and he's pulling this crap because, his feel bads were hurt. He and Kessinger went to a drag race at Vandermeer Speedway, which reminded him of his childhood. He and Kessinger went camping in the Sand Dunes National Park, which he always wanted to do. Every time he opened up his phone and saw pictures of his wife and children, he questioned what he was doing with Kessinger. Boom! And now it snowballs because he couldn't keep it in his pants. Every time he was with Kessinger, he felt like he didn't think, and there was a blinder in my face. He has pictures of his wife and daughters in his prison cell and talks to them every morning and every night. Well, I hope they talk to him while he's sleeping. I'm sure the conversation would be a little different. He has a book in his cell, which was the same book he used to read to Cece. He reads the book to his daughters along with some scripture every night. He wished it never happened and that he had never had a blinder over his eyes and could have seen what was going on. Well, probably the glasses need to be on a different head. My thoughts. Just my thoughts. To me, it sounds like he's trying to blame a lot of things on the women. Poor him. This girl, she listened to me. She went places I enjoyed. You know, she made me feel so good. Well, grow up and welcome to life. You think that things had to been different and you left instead of unalived your family, that Kessinger eventually would be relatively boring, because that is what happens when you get to know people. You don't have as much to talk about. You've got to work at this. All new, he had 33 years of stories to tell her. And her, I think she was 34 at the time. He stayed at Kessinger's almost every night his wife and daughters were in North Carolina. He felt like he didn't have time at home to think about his marriage when Shanann and the girls were at his state. He went home after work to work out, eat dinner, and then would go to Kessinger's house. He slept over at Kessinger's house almost the entire month of July. Being away from home allowed him not to think about being a father and husband because he wasn't surrounded by memories of his family. He wished he had met Kessinger at work and kept it at work. He feels like it's been a roller coaster ride, and I just kept punching a ticket and could not get off. This poor guy, he's had it so rough. Kessinger wanted to hook up all the time. Yeah, with all that respect she has for his family. He never had to worry about saying something stupid around Kessinger and never had to plan what he was going to say when he was with her. Kessinger asked him if he had ever strayed away before, and he told her no. He told Kessinger that he felt like she was a leash on him and she was able to tug him away from Shanann. With regards to Watt's relationship with Shanann, Watts explained his first date with Shanann. Shanann said he wasn't her type. Watts said he always had to pursue Shanann and always helped organize her medications inside her pillbox. Watts said he went to Shanann's colonoscopy a few months earlier after they got together, and she told him she knew he was a keeper after he went. So, boredom is not an excuse for people to do these things. He had a lovely family, absolutely beautiful, and he chose to give them up, for this. It's heartbreaking to me. There's no understanding. There's nothing. Like, look at, what does that tell you about this whole situation? Again, I believe they're both wrong. She knew he was married. He absolutely knew he was married. And this is where everything led to. It's mortifying. So let's see here. Shanann said, I remember her saying in one of those videos that he just wasn't her type and that he pursued her and he pursued her and they got together, moved to Colorado, had babies. and how much she loved him. But you do also see in other videos where that behavior was not being reciprocated, and that she knew that there was problems. His mother was always hesitant about Shanann. He was the baby of the family and never had a girlfriend in high school. Okay. He moved out of the house after high school graduation at 18 and never went back. His sister always moved in back and forth with her parents. He met Shanann when he was 25 years old, and the longest relationship he had before Shanann was approximately 6 months. He is more reserved and go with the flow. Shanann made most of the decisions in the house. You could tell that, but you could also, in my opinion, look like he kind of had somebody, enjoyed having somebody to take that heat off or that weight off of himself. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. Okay. Do, 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 do. That's it. The girl looked up Amber Fry, for heaven's sakes. And even though there was similar, she was nothing like Amber Fry. Amber Fry was misled to the point where Amber Fry thought that his wife had passed away. This girl knew all about that family, all about the girls. She knew. And I'm sorry. What do you call them? A slat? Sorry for my boldness, but I mean, what? Personal opinion. Personal opinion. As everything is in the think tank, of course. So now she is also going to tell you she knows nothing about, she knew nothing about what he did to his wife and kids. Nicole Kessinger said she knew absolutely nothing. She did know about the marriage and children. So, with regard to what happened to Shanann, Bella, and Celeste, or Cece, Shanann arrived home around 2 a.m. She had gone to a business meeting out of town with, I believe she was also her best friend, and they both, I don't know if they, I don't think, I think they had separate type businesses. How do I put this? It's not coming across right. Her and her best friend both worked for the same place. So he felt Shanann stirring around in bed after he felt like she knew he was having an affair. He said he used his credit card when he went out to dinner with Kessinger because he didn't have another Anadarko gift card and couldn't ask Kessinger to pay. Shanann started rubbing her hand on his leg, and adult activities happened at about 2:30. He felt like sex with Shanann was more of a test. He felt strange when he had sex and questioned who he was and who he had become. After that with Shanann may have been a trigger point, or like you hit the push button on a bomb and it just blows up. He said Shanann fell asleep after this. When he woke up that morning, got ready for work, then returned to bed and woke Shanann up to talk. Shanann was sleeping face down and rolled over on her back to talk to him. He felt like he had to say something to Shanann. So He straddled Shanann on the bed around her waist. He believed Shanann initially thought he wanted to mess around again. Shanann told him he was hurting the baby. He and Shanann talked for about 15 to 20 minutes, with him sitting on top of her. She was he was concerned Shanann knew about his affair and she and the kids wouldn't be there when he got home from work that evening. He felt like either Shanann would take the kids from the house or would lock him out when he tried to come home after work. He asked Shanann if they could cancel their couple's trip to Aspen. He asked Shanann if they could move to Brighton, Colorado, so they could get away from their house. He felt like going out on Saturday evening with Kessinger and using their credit card was going to be the last straw. Shanann told him she knew there was someone else and cried. He denied having the affair. I just felt guilty, more guilty than ever before. He told Shanann he didn't think their marriage was going to work. He did not feel like he and Shanann were compatible with each other. Anything that's new, referring to his relationship with Kessinger, always feels better than the old. He always felt nervous around Shanann and never felt like he could be himself. Poor baby. I mean, he had it so hard. Shanann asked him, what about last night? Shanann had not taken off the brassiere and didn't wash her face before she got to bed, so she had mascara running down her face. He and Shanann's conversation lasted less than 30 minutes. Shanann told him to get it off of her, and she knew he had someone else. He couldn't bring himself to tell her about Kessinger. He told Shanann he didn't love her, and Shanann said, you're never going to see the kids again. You're never going to see them again. Get off me. Don't hurt the baby. He immediately put both hands around Shanann's neck and unalived her. Every time I think about it, I'm just like, I know I was going to do that, referring to what he did to Shanann before I got on top of her. Like everything that happened that morning, I don't know. Like I try to go back in my head. I'm just like, I didn't want to do this, but I did it. Everything's just kind of like, it just felt like it was, I don't even know what to say. It felt like I had to. It just felt like there was already something in my mind that was implanted that I was going to do it. And when I woke up that morning, it was going to happen, and I had no control over it. Do you guys think he's basically saying, I believe that he had planned this? That's almost what it sounds like to me. What's your take on it? Do you think that he planned this before the actual act, before she came home from her business friend or business trip? I'd like to know. So I had no control over it. At the sentencing, I heard the prosecution said it takes 2 to 4 minutes to do this. So why couldn't I just let go? He doesn't want to know what Shanann saw when she looked back at him while he was doing this. Watts denied covering Shanann's head or face with anything when this happened. She didn't fight back or scream. He doesn't know why Shanann didn't fight back. He believes Shanann may have been praying. He read the Bible that said, forgive these people for what they do not know what they do. And maybe Shanann was saying that in her head at the time. So he's saying he believes he knows what she was thinking. Maybe complete and utter horror, despair, terrified. There's a few things. When when he was asked to take off his shirt so they could check for defensive wounds, he knew immediately he didn't have any because Shanann didn't fight back. He does not recall Shanann's arm being pinned down by his knees. I felt like the back of my head was going to happen, and just like that was going to happen. And just like at the end of the conversation, it was like, that's what happened. I just wish I could have let go or even started. Get off the pregnant girl. You POS. Time seemed to stand still, and he saw his life disappearing before his eyes, but he couldn't let go. His life was disappearing. Isn't it amazing how these people will think, how self-serving everything is? It was like picturing someone around you holding your hands, holding you and keeping you from letting go. He felt like he was in a rage and snapped. His attorney mentioned the crime of what happened there was a crime of passion, and that he does not know or does not understand how that could be passionate. Right? That morning, it was a new type of fight. There was emotion at first, but it was more anger than anything else because there was no love there. I think it was more anger from me and more like desperation from her. Shanann knew something wasn't right and wanted to fix it. After Shanann was gone, he didn't know what was happening and he felt like he was in a traumatic event. Okay. You know, it's almost like these guys take a page of other creeps' playbook because so many of them say very, very similar things, and it ends up coming back to poor me, and again, poor me. He didn't know what to do and didn't know what he had done. He was shaking and didn't know what happened. He wasn't in the right state of mind and wasn't in control of his thoughts or actions. People asked him why he didn't call 911, but no one knows what they would do in the same situation. Well, I know one thing that wouldn't be the same. I wouldn't have my hands around my pregnant wife's neck. Come on. If you leave that part out, I think you're good to go. But not only did he do this to Shanann, but then he goes and gets his little girls and loads them up into his vehicle with their unalive mother. He then took them to a site, a work site, and dropped them into, they look like 400s, what we would call in the oil field, 400s that hold water, crude, nasty, nasty arse, sludge, mortifying. How how could he do this? So he says, after Shanann had passed away, Bella walked into the bedroom holding her blanket and asked what was wrong with Mummy. He believed Bella might have been woken up by the noise. He told Bella, Mummy don't feel good. Bella thought Shanann was sleeping. Mm. He wrapped Shanann face down in the bed sheet, which was recovered at the oil site. He tried to carry Shanann down the stairs, lost his grip, and ended up having to pull her down the stairs. Bella watched him drag Shanann down the stairs and began to cry and said, "What's wrong with Mummy?" He told Bella again that her mummy didn't feel good. Bella is a smart girl and knew something was going on. Well, yeah, think you think she might have figured out what was going on. Give me a break, buddy. From the lady who bore your children was about to have one more. You traded her in the worst way possible for someone you worked with. Your kids, buddy. Like you look what you did. Well, you're no buddy of mine. Look what he did. Unreal. So Bella never touched Shanann or tried to wake her up. Bella followed him down the stairs. He backed his pickup, which we have all seen on video, and put Shanann into the back seat of the truck on the floorboard. When he returned inside, Cece was in her room and started to get out of bed. He believed the noise of Shanann's feet hitting the stairs as he dragged her down them may have woken up Celeste. Bella and Celeste were light sleepers. Bella and Celeste were walking around the house. Every time he sees pictures of Bella and Celeste, he doesn't understand how it could have happened. Well, you know what? You're not the only one. Being a dad was the best part of his life, and he took it all away. He felt like someone else had control over him that day. He wasn't able to fight back. No, actually, as just described, your wife was the one who could not fight back. You knew what you were doing. You had more control than absolutely anybody in this case. When the prosecutor said Bella bit her tongue repeatedly, he wanted to bang his head up against the wall. At this point, he puts his lunchbox in the truck and then puts both Bella and Celeste in the back of the truck on bench seats while Shanann was lying on the floorboard. Bella asked, "Is Mummy okay?" He told Bella and Celeste that Mummy would be fine. Bella and Celeste each had a blanket with them. Celeste animal had a stuffed animal barking dog. He put a gas can in the back of his truck and felt he could get rid of himself at the same time. If only, if only they would do this and leave the innocent alone. He could have, well, he probably wouldn't have fit in the 400, but there was many other things. So he didn't believe like he deserved to live or be on this earth. After everything happened, he considered taking his own life. He didn't, though, because he felt like if he did that at the oil site, he may have ended up hurting more people than just himself. He was the only one out there, other than his family. He may have ended up hurting more people than just himself. Okay, he knew there were other people in the area and didn't want something to catch fire or blow up. He does not know or own, I'm sorry, any weapons, but nothing seemed right that morning. As he drove to the oil site with Shanann, Bella, and Celeste, he was nervous, shaking, and didn't know what was going to happen. He knew that at that moment of his life, everything had completely changed. He had tried to picture a long ride out to the oil site and wondered if he could have saved his girls' lives. Talk about stupid questions. Holy dumb criminal. He was thinking during the entire drive. He has read books about how dads could never hurt their children, and he has wondered, was I even a dad at that point? I don't know. He wanted his whole life to be a dad, and nothing made sense, including the oil tank. During the ride, the girls were dozing off and on. They held each other and laid in each other's laps. During the ride, Bella said, "Daddy, it smells." When he got to the oil site, he took Shanann out of the back of the truck and pulled her over and laid her on the ground where she was ultimately buried. Bella and Celeste were still sitting in the back of the truck as he removed Shanann. Bella and Celeste asked him, "What are you doing to Mommy?" He said he does not recall what he said to them. He returned to the truck, and Cece was first. Little Cece, who had a blue Yankees blanket, and he put it over her head and on a live Celeste in the back seat. He put his hand over her mouth and nose, and his other hand around, yeah, it continues, he unalived her, right beside Bella. He had no idea how long it took because he had no concept of time. With regards to what he was thinking at the time, I wasn't. If I was thinking, this wouldn't have happened, or any partial hint of what I feel for those girls and what I feel for my wife, and none of this would have happened, so I wasn't thinking. After Celeste passed, he took Celeste out of the truck, took her up that tank, opened the hatch, and dropped her inside feet first. You guys ever been on top of a 400? It's a long ways up. The hatches, they're not big at all. He did not have it to Celeste into the tank, but may have had to manipulate her to get inside. Closed the hatch up and went back to his truck. When he got to the truck, Bella asked, "What happened to Cece?" Bella asked him in her soft voice, "Is the same thing going to happen to me as Cece?" He's not sure of what he told Bella, or not sure if he told her yes, like a horrible person, but then did the same thing with that same Yankees blanket. And Bella said, "Daddy, no." And that was the last thing she said. Same things happened. Unalived her. All he could hear was a grunt. He noticed a couple of spots over Bella's eye when picking her up. He walked Bella up to a separate oil tank, opened the hatch, and dropped her inside feet first. Bella seemed harder to get into the tank, but he had to manipulate her as well. He does not know why he put Bella and Celeste in separate tanks. Bella and Celeste were not alive when he put them in the tanks. But after he put Bella into the oil tanks, he returned to where Shanann was located and started to clear away some weeds with his rake. The rake broke and he used it to remove weeds as he left it, part of it out at the site. He does not believe he ever thought of going back for a broken part of his rake. He dug a hole with his shovel and put Shanann inside. She was not, did not seem to have evident injuries. He recalled Shanann's eyes were bloodshot. Shanann had not partially given birth when he had buried her in the ground. Every time he closes his eyes, he hears Bella say, "Daddy, no." He hears it every day. Damn straight. And that's all? I mean, out of all of that, I understand how that can be haunting, and he should hear it every day, and he should hear it all night through his sleep. He said just thinking about the tanks makes him want to throw up. Hmm, yeah. What were you thinking? Disgusting. 55:55 on our time zone. Okay. So okay, here we go. Rusick said at his sentencing that he was trying to separate everyone, and that was not true. He felt like someone else was in control of what he was doing. He did not consider the fact that he may have helped with detection by putting the girls in separate oil tanks. He considered putting the girls with Shanann because everything happened so fast. I had no time to really have thought to have a thought that was my own. He didn't purposely try to separate them. With regard to the trash bag found at the tank site, he didn't want his girls looking at Shanann in the back seat of his truck, so he placed the trash bag on her feet and around her head. Guys, oh my word. Sit down as she barks at a possible squirrel. So, this whole show program is a massive trigger warning. They're talking about things that should never have to be discussed. A person should never be able to have the ability to do this to their children, let alone their wife. Like, what? So let's see here. The girls didn't know what was going on. After the Yankee blanket was still in his truck and he threw it away. He stopped by a construction dumpster in his neighborhood and threw away his clothes and the Yankee blanket on his way home from work on Monday. He keeps extra boots and clothes in his work truck, which he changed into after these M's. He felt like taking Celeste and Bella's was caused by an anger with Shanann that he took out on everyone in front of him that morning. I have never been angry before, and this was like the epitome of being angry. He had rage and had lost his mind. Yeah, he lost his bloody mind, all right. He was angry with Shanann over separating him from his family. He was separating his family. How these people are able to twist and maneuver things to try and be the victim is nauseating. When he and Shanann got married, he told his family he didn't need them anymore because he had Shanann. He cussed out his mother and did things to his family he never thought he could do or would do. He's not sure if Shanann coached him or not, referring to how Watts treated his family. Okay, so now that's going to be her fault as well. He was angry since July when Shanann told him his parents would never see their granddaughters again. I don't know if that had something to do with it, but something inside me just triggered it, and it was just like all that pent up from the wedding and everything. It's like a long fuse that finally just went to its end. So now, I don't know if we're going to get into this, but the reason Shanann was so angry with his mother was the fact that the kids had food allergies. And these foods were put out for the children to have access to. Food allergies are always the worst. So, I families argue, these kind of things happen, but you know what? I would be pretty peeved too if my in-laws started to put out, say, peanuts for my child who doesn't, but in this scenario was allergic to nuts and they were put out. Ooh la la. I'd be fiery. I don't know if that had something to do with it. So, pent up from the wedding and everything, his mother and Shanann never got along after he proposed, 2012. His mother and Shanann never agreed on anything. His mother possibly thought Shanann wasn't good enough. Shanann bought her very own big, beautiful home at a very young age. I believe she had it built. So I'm going to say Shanann was probably good enough for most. And if not, well, probably them with the issues. His mother always thought Shanann was hiding something from her past from him. His mother and sister didn't like Shanann and felt like Shanann took him away from them and moved him out to Colorado. His grandmother was the only one who came to his wedding. He danced with his grandmother and his friend's mother during the groom's dance at the wedding. They didn't go to the wedding. Wow. Now, I'm not sure at this point if that's due to something Shanann had made happen or if the parents. Let me know down below if you guys know. Was this the parents? But you know what? He needed to pull up his big boy pants, in my mind. He's just taking the wimpy way out on everything here. He looks outside every day and wonders what he could have been doing with his kids. Right now, I'd have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and more than likely a 1-month-old son and a beautiful wife. And right now, it's just me. With regard to finding out Shanann was pregnant with Nico, Shanann was pregnant with Nico within 2 weeks of trying. So they tried for this baby, and then he changed his mind. He was surprised and scared when he found out Shanann was pregnant. He may not have looked excited about the pregnancy because he may have felt guilty about talking to Kessinger at work. He met this girl, and for whatever reason, I don't think she was attractive, but he obviously did. And somehow, in his mind, she was worth it as he continues to go on owning nothing. There were never any incidents of domestic or DV between he and Shanann during their relationship. This just was allegedly the first time he had lost his temper at all. So usually when this kind of BS is going on, you've usually got the girl in the background from personal experience running the wife down, 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 while boosting this guy up. Do you think this is what's going on here when this went on? Shanann was the dominant person who always took control of everything. Well, based on what I'm learning just in this one document, somebody had to take charge. I mean, he just went with the flow and always wanted to be in the back row. He never felt belittled by Shanann. He was the introvert, and Shanann took control in most situations. He hated being on videos, but he went along with it because it was for Shanann's business. He couldn't tell Shanann he didn't want to be in the videos because it would have made her mad. And again, wimp, Shanann was a good salesperson and would have sold everything we were wearing back to us without us even knowing. Shanann was a good salesperson and could have sold everything we were wearing back to us without us even knowing. He hated being out there for everyone to see and was against doing the gender reveal on Facebook Live. With regards to Watt's plan to do about his missing family, he had no idea what he was going to do. He didn't understand he was able to act normal around his co-workers. Doesn't understand how he was able to. His plan was not well thought out and not a criminal minds type of thing. Obviously, with regards to how Watts felt when he wore Thrive patches. So this is the patches that his wife was selling and doing quite well with. So being that she was bringing in a good income, and on social media, we do tend to have to share a lot of times more than we want to. This was part of her business. When he wore the duo burn patches, it felt like he was working out all day. Kessinger told him he would sometimes fall asleep on her couch in the middle of a conversation and then would wake up and finish what he was saying. Watts indicated it may have been related to insomnia. It felt different on the duo burn patches than when he wore any other Thrive patch. The duo burn patches made him feel like he could go longer and longer each day. He only slept approximately 3 hours each night. Well, that sounds like nothing good. I what? Looking back, he realized God gave him plenty of opportunities for him to get out, referring to getting out of his relationship with Kessinger. Again, instead of looking for the plenty of opportunities to get out, how about you keep stuff in your jeans and you don't have to worry about this? His friend Jeremy Lindstrom asked him to go to the Broncos game with him on Saturday, August 11th, 2018, and he said no. You should have gone with Lindstrom and told Kessinger he couldn't find a babysitter. Being away from Kessinger might have caused a light switch to go off in his head. If he would have had gone to the Broncos game, it may have put him on a different trajectory. He wished now that Shanann only went to North Carolina for a week and Shanann wasn't gone for 5 weeks straight. When the incident with Celeste and the nut allergy occurred at his parents', which he referred to as Nutgate, he should have stopped everything with Kessinger and concentrated on fixing the relationship with Shanann and his family. Yeah, he should have stood up to maybe Mommy Dearest, because nut allergies are probably one of the worst. Seafood and nuts. The reaction can be fatal. So I would say he made a ton of mistakes, or his morals have been questioned in all sorts of behaviors. And still, he's not taking any kind of responsibility. He's not sticking up for his wife. He's not sticking up for his child. Shanann and his parents got into a serious argument over the nut incident, and his nephew told Bella to hide behind a curtain because he didn't think her mom, Shanann, would let her ever come back again. So Celeste celebrated her birthday in North Carolina a few days after July 17th, 2018, and his parents did not attend after Shanann made a Facebook post about allergies. Shanann said the post wasn't directed at anyone particular, but Shanann had a method to her madness or to the madness. So Shanann was convinced that his mother had tried to delete their daughter by putting nuts in front of Celeste. His mother felt like Celeste's allergy was not serious. Well, I'm sorry, mother-in-law from hell, but that's not for you to decide. After the incident with the nut allergy, Celeste, he didn't speak to his parents until August 6, 2018. Well, he probably should have, and he probably should have stuck up for his child and his wife. His parents said they weren't sure they could ever forgive Shanann. His parents asked him if he had someone else because they saw him texting someone the entire time he was at the house in North Carolina. Shanann told Watts he wasn't allowed to call or talk to his parents. His dad was his hero, and he felt like he lost him because he wasn't able to talk to him for 3 weeks. His father took the entire week off when they were in North Carolina, but Shanann booked them for 5 days at the beach instead. So with regard to what Watts and Kessinger talked about regarding their future together, Kessinger told him she would help him find an affordable apartment around Brighton or Fort Lupton. Kessinger did not want him to move in with her. It would have been too soon to move in with Kessinger because they had only dated for about a month. Now, that's really hard for me to wrap my brain around. 1 month. Kessinger's apartment was her shield or her safe place and was the reason she never liked people to come over. She's not likable. I'm not finding any kind of qualities in this individual that I think are enviable. Kessinger let him come over because her dog liked him, and she felt like he belonged there. Shanann always checked his cell phone, so he communicated with Kessinger on his work phone. He had used a secret calculator app on his personal cell phone to store his and Kessinger's pictures. Sneaky little shite. He deleted his Facebook account on August 8th, 2018, after Kessinger told him she told her friends about him. He said he was afraid Kessinger's friends would try to look him up on Facebook and would see his wife was pregnant. With regard to if Kessinger and he had ever fought, they had never fought, but he had to calm Kessinger down a few times. No doubt. Now, any surprise there? I think she's a total nut bar in my personal opinion. My personal opinion. She reminds me of Glenn Close putting that rabbit on the stove. I'm sorry, my personal opinion. I'm not liking this woman. I can't. Oh, there we go. Nice shot. Not. Yeah, they disgust me. They totally disgust me. All right. I need to hydrate and we'll get on with this. What do you guys think? 1 month. That's all it took for him to do everything that he did. Hmm. Wow. So I've also looked at Shanann's autopsy report. Let me know if you guys are interested in seeing the information on there. Um, there's a couple things like I would probably redact, but for the most part, although her passing, Lizzie, at her husband's hands are horrific. But the autopsy is not disgustingly graphic. And as for the girls, to be honest with you, I have not taken the time to look them up. I'm sure they're out there. The only thing I'm curious about is if there was any kind of fluids in their lungs. That would be the only thing I would like to know, or in their nose. Mm. The incident where Kessinger realized he put his wife first was when he left her house on July 4th, 2018. Kessinger got upset when she realized she would always be the other person, and Watts would have always put his wife first. So is it comments like this that make people wonder if she was involved? I'm not saying she is, don't get me wrong. I really don't know if she is. Many say yes, but I've never seen any charges or anything of any type of documents that I would take as fact. But there's just a lot of speculation. And yeah, always, even if they had gotten divorced, let me tell you, she would never be first, or she shouldn't be. His children should be. The first incident where Kessinger realized he put his wife first, which should have always been happening. He told Kessinger just because he had to leave didn't mean she had to take a step back. Kessinger told him she thought it was better they didn't see each other the rest of the day, July 14th, 2018. So there's a little bit of manipulation, in my personal opinion. That sounds pretty much like a game. Kessinger ended up asking him to come over after she returned from a baseball game, and he went to her house. So honestly, is she not going to be the dominant one had there been a relationship? Would she not have been the dominant individual? I mean, the games. Oh, I'm sorry, we're missing Jasmine. 1 month, guys. And then he had some explaining to do. Do you think that looks like fear? Concern? Sorry, I had to mute out. She was saying hi to somebody out there somewhere. God only knows I don't see humans. Maybe there was a bird. So Kessinger set up a couple of dates on her eHarmony app, and the men never showed up. He didn't know Kessinger was dating other people until a few weeks later. Kessinger thought he was different because he would fix things around her apartment for her, which no one had done for her in the past. Me, 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 me. Kessinger's friend Jim was her friend for a long time and worked in the oil field. It looks like a lot of her people were from the oil field. Let's see here. She realized she was not going to be first, that his family would be. So she pouted. Disgusting little beast. With regard to selling of his and Shanann's house around the first week of August 2018, Shanann had sent an email to Ann Meadows about selling their house. Meadows recommended they get pre-approved for another house before they sold their house. He said Shanann talked about buying a home in Brighton, Colorado, so they could stay in the Adams 12 school district. He and Shanann had a lot of stress during their marriage, which included Shanann's parents living with them for about 16 months and not having much alone time. This guy just continues to show what a POS he is. Like, are you kidding me? He never thought he and Shanann would have to file for bankruptcy. Most of the bankruptcy dealt with credit card debt from their wedding. They had a lot of doctor bills from the girls always being sick. They were behind on their mortgage payments. Ooh. Shanann was sending checks for their HOA payments to the wrong address for an entire year. He didn't have access to their bank account on his cell phone and never asked Shanann to see their account. Ever since he sold his four-wheeler for less than he owed on it, Shanann wouldn't let him do anything for their finances. When he worked for Longmont Ford, he would just bring Shanann his paychecks. Well, again, whose fault is that? It was stupid to call the school or Ann Meadows. With regards to Watts calling the school the morning after the deleting, he was freaking out about what he had just done. And again, he says it was stupid to call the school or Ann Meadows. It made sense they were going to be suspicious about him because he probably sounded eccentric on the phone. Well, and the fact that usually the husbands are the first ones looked at. Let's see here, with regards to why Watts pled guilty. I didn't want anybody else. I didn't want them to go through this for 2 to 4 years. I didn't want my attorneys to lie for me for 2 to 4 years, and I wouldn't have done anything I told them to, and they would have done anything I told them to do. I don't see how they can do that. Like, that's what attorneys do, like they take their defendants and they say, hey, like, what happened? Okay, we'll go with that story, right? Reminds me of Odinism and things like that. You just can't ask them to lie. Is that what he's saying? You just can't. A few weeks after his arrest, he told his attorneys the truth about everything that happened. His attorneys asked him if he was ever offered a plea to plead guilty, would he take it? He said he would plead guilty in order to end it all. His attorneys asked him about 100 times if he was sure he wanted to take a plea deal. Well, that's their jobs. You can't fault them for doing their jobs. His attorneys asked, okay, so before he walked into the courtroom, his attorneys asked him again if he was sure he wanted to take the plea deal. His attorneys never told him he had to take the plea deal, and they had a lot of creative motions to file and were ready to fight. He told Walsh he didn't want him to fight for something where the story wasn't true because it would only have gotten worse for everyone. He does not regret taking a plea deal, but he never thought he'd be in prison for the rest of his life. Well, why wouldn't you assume that? Why? That's just A ridiculous statement. What did you think you were going to get for unaliving two young kids and your pregnant wife? Like a holiday? He didn't want for everybody to have to relive the case every day. Or did he not want to do it himself, which is more what I personally believe. He told his parents the night before he pled guilty that he was going to plead guilty for a reason. His parents had received correspondence from people all over the world who told them the Thrive patch wasn't FDA approved and can alter someone's mind. His parents still believe he was railroaded and felt pressured to plead guilty. He does not feel he was pressured because his defense team asked him plenty of times. His parents talked to him about using the defense of CPTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, for being in an emotionally abusive relationship. What? Oh my God, I think I just puked in my mouth a bit. Oh, he could relate some of the information, but it doesn't make up for what happened. When he talks to his parents on the phone, they believe there's a chance he could get out of the hoosegow. On his parents' bad days, they tell him he should fight it. His mother loses it a lot on the phone. His dad always tells his mother not to talk about it with him on the phone because Watts will go back to his cell and think about it all night. Really? And the poor guy. His parents sold his toolbox so they could afford to travel to Redacted. He plans on telling his parents the truth about what happened when they visit him in April or May. In October 2018, prosecutors went to Sandy and Frank Ruzick and asked them about a possible plea deal instead of the DP. The defense team told him there wasn't enough evidence on certain things and that Watts told the defense team it needed to end. He felt like his attorneys were fair and similar to guidance counselors. He felt that he, Watts, was in charge of his own decisions regarding the case. His attorneys told him he needed to show more emotion in court so he didn't look like a cold person. He told his attorneys told him, sorry, he could look at the crime pictures and he refused. I bet he did. I mean, because he's just shown all sorts of bravery through this entire thing, through his marriage, through his whatever the hell he was doing with that skank. I mean, come on. Personal opinion, personal opinion. He prayed for the hazmat workers and anyone else that had to see the aftermath. You know, okay, this is the thing. I've talked about this before. I've worked in the oil patch. I've literally, those 400s that these girls were dropped into, I've got a great big 8-inch hose, stuck it through the bottom hatch, and taken all that sludge and oil and crap that's in those 400s and put them into the back of a vac truck. To find a child in that? Are you kidding me? I mean, that is horrific. It's not something my brain wants to even understand. It can't understand this. I mean, it's a dirty, disgusting, yucky place to be. What are in those things are disgusting. And finding a child? Oh, really? Mm. He prayed for the hazmat workers and anyone else that had to see the aftermath. His attorneys told him if the case went to court, he would have to look at the pictures, so he didn't want to have a reaction when they were shown in court. Watts asked if Sandy and Frank Rusek saw the pictures, and he was told no. He didn't want Sandy or Frank Ruzick to have to see any of the pictures, hear anyone talk about what they saw, or hear anyone bash their daughter's memories. How can you bash their memories? They're little kids. He wanted everyone to know Shanann was a loving wife and always helped everybody else. He remembered Agent Lee, and S.A. Coder, came into the room after his father left and tried to get the true story from him. He wanted to bang his head against the table. He didn't want all of us, S.A. Coder and Detective Hoover, or myself, to have to get on the witness stand and testify about what we saw. He didn't want anyone or everyone to have to relive what happened over and over for years. He felt like Shanann's family could start to have closure. How kind. With regard to his decision involved not have any DP. When in his cell in the Weld County Jail, he felt like he should have just curled up and passed away, and he should have. All the inmates would yell at him at night and would explain to him all the ways he could unalive himself in his cell by drowning himself in the toilet or, you know, that. He didn't unalive himself because he felt he may have a different purpose. Oh, this man may have had a different purpose. He prayed to God that God would move him away from Colorado. He heard there was a hit on him in Colorado. Aw, he felt he would last a week in Colorado DOC before someone would unalive him. He felt like God moved him to redacted for a reason. With regards to what Watts thought about trying to use the defense about Shanann unaliving the girls at trial, he never thought about Shanann deleting the girls until it was mentioned to him during the interrogation. Well, and we've seen that. It was a way for him to try and justify, in his mind, possibly what could have happened. So he said after it was mentioned that Shanann may have done this, he just went with it. He knew his dad was out in the lobby and his parents would probably believe Shanann was involved because they didn't like her. I never thought about that story, and that's what my attorneys were going with. 2 weeks after his arrest, he told his attorneys the truth about what happened, and they were quiet and wrote it down. His attorneys told him they wouldn't judge him and appreciated his honesty. With regards to Watt's past or childhood, he was always someone who tried to coax people down, who would try to coax people down. He was in one fight in his entire life, which was in third grade, and he and the other kid ripped each other's shirts and left crying. He wasn't popular, but was never bullied in school. He had braces and a Jim Carrey bowl cut haircut. He never talked to many people at school, even though people knew who he was. He never had a girlfriend in high school and always flew under the radar. He didn't have low esteem, but he also didn't want to be part of a group or clique. He had a couple of friends and appreciated his close-knit relationships. His sister was always the popular one and was outgoing. He and his grandmother would sit outside the middle school, and his sister would always be the last one out of school because she had to talk to everyone in the hallway. He was opposite of his sister. He didn't want to be popular and just wanted to be a regular guy. He could not recall anything that would have been pent up from childhood. With regard to if or how his father's addiction affected him, his father became addicted to a white powdery substance after he left home. His father's addiction didn't hurt him as much as he thought it would. When he talked to his father about his addiction, his father immediately changed the subject. His father was coping with the fact that Watts never came back home. His mother initially believed his father was having an affair because he couldn't account for his missing money. He, Watts, has never used substances and tried to talk his father about why he was using substances. He told his father he was throwing his life away. His father lost a lot of weight and his nose bled all the time. Well, that's what happens. After Watts talked to his father stopped using substances. Well, it's a miracle. He was always closer to his father than his mother. His father always came to every one of his sporting events. His father would come to his games even if Watts wasn't going to play. Never seen his father cry. His mother was loving and gave him affection. His mother always wanted to know how he felt. If there was something wrong, he could never have told anyone and dealt with it himself. I don't know if growing up that way kept me that way, deal with your things on your own, but they built up so much that you can't deal with them and they take hold of you. You never thought in a way they could take hold of you. With regards to Watts planting evidence, after he deleted Shanann, he threw her cell phone and Apple Watch on the couch. If he had planned it, he would have taken her items out to the oil tank site with him. He took off Shanann's wedding ring and put it on the counter so it looked like she didn't want to fix their marriage and wanted a divorce. He threw the therapy book away in the trash so it looked like she believed nothing would work in their marriage. He may have gone down to the basement to get trash bags. Motion alarm on basement door. He does not recall going downstairs to work out that morning. With regards to what he said, whoa. Sorry, guys. So, with regard to what he did after he went into the house the afternoon of Monday, August 13th, 2018, Watts was in the house for approximately 1 minute before he went to the front door and opened it for law enforcement. He went in through the garage door and opened the front door. He ran upstairs and pretended to look around for Shanann and the girls. Atkinson's son found Shanann's cell phone. With regards to Watts looking at the passenger side of Shanann's vehicle when he entered the garage, he does not recall looking in the vehicle, but he possibly opened the passenger door because Atkinson's had mentioned seeing the girls' car seats. He threw away the sheets to their bed that day after the M's. When you do this, sometimes they evacuate their bowels, and that occurred with Shanann and was the reason he threw away the sheet. What a horrific, horrific thing to happen. With regards to Watts communicating with his father the morning he picked him up from the airport, it was strange when he picked up his father because he knew it was probably the last time he would see him on the outside. His father just wanted to talk about sports when they were in the car together. His father always tries to deflect the conversation and change the conversation when they need to discuss something important. His father had asked him if he knew where Shanann and the girls were. Maybe he kind of figured out something maybe happened, and he just wanted to talk to me as a son. He was told his father never left during Watt's entire polygraph and interview. If his father actually knew what happened, his father would have told him to admit it and admit to what he had done. His mother was always more aggressive in that marriage. His and Shanann's marriage seemed to mirror Shanann's mom and dad's relationship. Shanann, similar to her mother, and he, Watts, was similar to Shanann's father. Well, you also might say that that goes for his family as well. Shanann's mother always told her she should marry someone like her father. Shanann's father always liked him because he helped fix Shanann's car when they were dating. He, Watts, has always been the one to help people, not hurt them. He, Watts, never tried to change Shanann. Shanann's husband in her first marriage was more like her mother, and it didn't work. I didn't realize there was a first message or a first marriage. With regards to if Watts knew walking into the police department the morning of the polygraph that he would confess to what happened. He knew there was a reason he was brought back to the police department the following day. The polygraph was horrible. He was asked questions for 3 to 4 hours before the polygraph. It's like you just break down someone's brain to where like it's mush to jello. I know you guys have a job and you have a plan and you executed it. He knew when he was asked about what he did on Saturday night that he had to talk about the Rockies game. It was going to be through interview, a thorough interview. Walking in there that day just to walk into that room, I knew I wasn't walking out. With regards to Watt's media interviews, he never wanted to speak with the media. He felt like the media was going to continue to knock on his door until he answered. Nicole Atkinson called him and told him Fox would be at his house at 10:30 for an interview. He doesn't even want to know what he said or what he looked like on the news. Some people said it made him look worse after the fact. Yeah, he ended up just lying to more and more people by talking to the media. He heard he looked like a heartless, soulless person. To do what he did, you've got to be. With regards to if Watt spoke to Kessinger after the M's, he said he spoke to Kessinger on Monday morning, August 13th, 2018. He and Kessinger then spoke on the phone. Kessinger said she believes Shanann took off with his daughters. On Tuesday, August 14th, Kessinger kept asking him weird questions through text message, still trying to determine if it was really him. Kessinger asked him what his dog's name was and what yoga studio he went to. It was possible Kessinger believed Shanann had the cell phone and she was just making sure. Kessinger told him it was the last time he would hear from her and she was going to stay with her friend Jim. Kessinger told him not to contact her until this is done. Kessinger told him to delete everything on his cell phone. He didn't delete everything from Kessinger, and he is not sure why. Why would she even suggest such a thing? You know, was there guilt? It doesn't make sense to me, especially because they were gone. What did they talk about? So when he was on vacation in San Diego, he told his friend Mark about Kessinger. Mark had a similar situation occur where he started dating a female who was engaged, and the female ended up cheating on him. Well, because that is the way it goes. Get down, Jess. Get down. Says he never completely opened up to Mark about Kessinger and wished he did because Mark may have been able to offer him some advice. Well, I think he could have figured this one out on his own. It's not a big leap to think that once he started messing with this girl, that whole month that he was hooking up with her, that he could fully trust her. He could believe everything she was saying. He was obviously willing to give her space if she needed it. There were videos of Kessinger recording herself because she was bipolar. What? His father or his attorney told him about a few videos Kessinger made when they were talking about being bipolar. She would get worked up about nothing. Kessinger came to his house one time on July 4th, 2018. He woke up the morning of July 4th, 2018 at Kessinger's house because he didn't have to work that day. Made me jump. When he woke up, he had 10 missed calls from Shanann. He went outside and called Shanann back, and Shanann was pissed. She yelled at him and asked him where he was at. He told Shanann he was sleeping, and Shanann told him she didn't know where he was and hung up on him. He went back in, told Kessinger he had to go home in case Shanann called back. Kessinger asked him if he was going to come back, and he said no. Kessinger was pissed that he left. You know, what the hell? She said she felt like she was always going to be second fiddle. Well, what do you expect when you're messing with a married man who has little kids? She is very self-serving. She told him she researched online if mistresses could turn into a real relationship. Around the first week of August, he told Kessinger he had talked to Shanann about separating. So Kessinger started to look for apartments for him. How kind. How kind. The heart on this woman, I tell you. His relationship with Kessinger contributed to these passings, but she never asked him to do anything. Kessinger never knew if she wanted to have kids, but she told him she wished she could give him a son. Kessinger never knew Shanann was pregnant. It was possible Kessinger and Shanann Shanann was pregnant from Facebook, but Kessinger never mentioned it to him if she's seen it. Well, she was playing her own games here, wasn't she? He says he was fully honest with her and felt all relaxed, much better situation for him. Well, this woman was going to be a hell of a lot bossier than his wife. She's given every red flag in my books as to reasons why you would not get involved with her. 1 month. She wished she could give him a son. With regard to the possibility, he named his son Nico after Kessinger. Shanann picked the name for their son. He wanted to spell his son Nico, but Shanann said no. Nico is the Italian name Shanann always liked. He did not get to pick any of his children's name, but he told Shanann he liked them. With regard to him looking up lyrics to the Metallica song Battery, Kessinger liked the song Battery and asked him what the song meant. He researched the meaning behind the lyrics and learned it referenced a family coinciding as a battery. He did not look up the lyrics to the song when he was driving to or from the oil site after the M's. Kessinger was into different types of music, and Battery was a song she asked him about because he knew Metallica very well. with regards to how Watts was doing mentally. He didn't know how he was going to redact it. When he was at DRDC, Denver Reception and Diagnostic Center, he was put through the ringer. He took 11 separate tests to figure out his IQ, which ended up being between 135 or 140. So she's sitting here begging literally for cat morsels, little tiny cat treats, little tiny. And she's just sitting beside me making all this noise, heartbroken. Okay, after dinner one evening, he was told to change clothes and was put into a van and transported to Redacted. He got staffed at the prison in Redacted and hopes to get a job soon. He has a female he sees in prison who asks him how things are going. No, don't start. And if he needs any psych meds, he has declined any and all psych medication. Most of the men in his unit are on medication. He tries to keep a low profile in the prison. With regard to what food he misses the most, who cares? He says he misses Bojangles, Georgia Boy's barbecue, and Shanann's cooking, spaghetti sauce and fried pizza. Shanann her grandmother's recipe for pizza dough, and she made amazing pizza. With regard to Watts, does with all the letters he receives while in the Huskow, if someone writes him once, he will not write them back. He keeps almost most of the supportive letters, but will throw away any weird letters. There is a male in high school senior who wrote to him, so Watts threw the letter away. The same male wrote him again a few weeks ago and told him he supported him. Many people, including journalists, have tried to write him and asked a lot of questions. He's responded to a few people, but they were his parents had talked to, so they knew they were real. Stop it. Lizzie, you're a big Rottweiler. And you're just sitting there going, wow, 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 wow. Oh, goodness. Many people ask Watts for spiritual advice because what? What? He had one female write to him who was in a harmful relationship and couldn't find a relationship with God. He had never read the Bible before going to prison and has since read it cover to cover. He writes down a couple of scriptures a day for his parents. His uncle and aunt are missionaries and were amazed at how mature he has become with the Bible. Watt's gift is a great memory, so he tries to help people by memorizing scriptures. He's had other inmates write him just to ask if he could send them some scriptures. People ask about the case, he won't write them back. With regards to if he will ever thought he would fall in love again, he said, no, I don't think that's going to happen. I'm not the guy that's down the street. What's his name? Redacted. He heard Redacted got engaged over a letter, and that's pretty insane. He heard one female send him a letter while he was in Colorado, which included a picture of her in a bikini. The press found out. He does not write back anyone associated with media. The Redacted news stations have asked to talk to him, and the person has declined. He has never thought about writing a book. His parents have suggested he write down how he feels and how he's dealing with everything. He has always had crazy imagination ever since he was a little kid. He convinced his teacher in grade school that he went to Japan or China over the summer, which was not true. Yeah, so crazy imagination or just a complete liar. He wrote a whole story about it, and his teacher believed him. With regards to what Watts thinks of himself now, when he was incarcerated in Weld County, he didn't feel like himself. He wondered how many of his friends could say good things about him after what happened. He shouldn't take to heart what people think about him because what God thinks about him is the only thing that matters now. He's asked God for his forgiveness. As I roll my eyes, I was hoping they could one day forgive me too. He's gone, he has done some good things in his life, but he has screwed up the most important thing. You know, there's just 10 commandments. That's it. If you doesn't matter religious or not, stay on board and you're probably going to be okay. I mean, this kind of hard left, not acceptable in any way, shape, or form. He hopes he can help other people with the time he has left. It's going to take time for the guilt to go away. It should never go away, by the way. People are defining him by one moment in his life. I never knew I could have a relationship with God like I do now. It's like the amazing grace. Stop it, Lizzie, with all of this. But I just wish nobody had to pay any kind of price for this. I know there is a purpose for everybody. I just hope I can find mine. Well, I don't know what a unaliving POS could possibly do for anybody. You know, he needs to stop blaming everybody else for what he has done, own some of this stuff before he'll ever begin to be able to give any kind of advice. He can't even own his responsibility. So, with regard to what could have said in order to have told us the truth during his interview at the Frederick Police Department, when he was in the interrogation room, he was nervous, knew he did something wrong, and knew they were going to find out. He has watched enough TV shows, but never talked to police officers in the past. He struggled with the horror of knowing what he did and trying to tell someone else about it. He knew what he did was horrific and how much it would hurt other people. He couldn't admit to himself that he had done it, so he couldn't admit it to the police. He believed that he wasn't asked about Shanann hurting the kids. It may have come out in a different way. Again, somebody else's fault. He believed if we would have lied and told him we saw a video of the kids in the truck, he would have told us the truth. He had asked to talk to his dad because he wanted to tell his dad he loved him and that it was probably the last time he would see him outside his cell, and to feed his dad a complete line of BS. He felt like the interviews, leaving the room from time to time, gave him Watts time to stew and was a successful tactic. He'd never seen the pictures before, the two girls, which we showed him during the interrogation. He'd never seen Celeste wearing the white dress in the picture. The picture of Celeste and Bella we showed him may have come from when they were in North Carolina. Showing him pictures of the girls during the interrogation definitely got into my head. He didn't show emotion when we showed him the picture because is the type of person to hold it all in and not show emotion. At the end of the interview, we left the prison as Watts was required to eat lunch and be present during the head count. We told Watts that we might return after lunch to ask him additional questions, and he said okay. SA Coder also told Watts we may come back in a month, a year, or even 2 years to speak with him to keep track and keep it in the back of his mind. We returned to the prison several hours later to speak with Watts. We told Watts we had additional questions regarding the events of August 13th, 2018. Watts agreed to answer additional questions, which are reflected above in the timeline provided by Watts. At the end of the interview, we thanked Watts for speaking to us and asked him if he would speak to us again in the future. Watts agreed. We asked Watts what he wanted to have happen with the information he provided us. Watts said he figured we would most likely tell Sandy and Frank Ruzek about what he said to give them closure. Detective Hoover said he wasn't sure that he could tell the Rustic family. He had no intention on telling anyone what he said outside of law enforcement. What he would appreciate being able to tell his parents about what happened before they heard it from anywhere else. Before the interview concluded, I asked Watts if I could take a picture of him for the file. Watts agreed to 2 pictures, and they are attached to the report. No, not for us, it's not. Whoa. So, guys, you just get angrier and angrier. Chris Watts sent a chilling text message to his mistress saying his family was gone after deleting his pregnant wife and 2 young daughters. He claimed that he had taken his wife Shanann and girls Bella 4 and Celeste 3 to a play date, but they failed to return home. Nicole Kessinger, who thought Watts 33 was divorced, I don't think so, said the father, who didn't wear a wedding ring around her, seemed calm and didn't show any emotion after claiming they were missing. Just hours earlier, he had deleted Shanann and his daughters and put their bodies in an oil site where he worked and had met Kessinger just weeks earlier. Miss Kessinger, who went to the police after Shanann and the girls disappeared on August 13th, broke her silence in an interview with the Denver Post days before Watts will be jailed for life. Wow. What do you guys think? I'll tell you what. There it is. All righty then. Holy. Yeah, Iceland's having some troubles, hey, friends? She said this is Kessinger, barely knew him and was never introduced to any of his family members or friends during the relationship that lasted less than 2 months. We're hearing about 5 weeks, allegedly. Detectives believe Shanann and the girls were deleted inside their home shortly after she returned home from a business trip in Arizona on the morning of August 13th. They believe the girls may have been deleted before their mom, who worked in sales for the nutrition company Lavelle. Did he? Oh, this is what we were trying to cover earlier. Epic fail. We got 2 minutes in. So that footage is chilling of him. Sorry. Yeah, is him loading that truck where you see the feet and you know exactly what he's doing. He tells everybody he's loading up tools. He's loading up his deceased wife, possibly deceased kids. So he's saying that in a rage, hmm, after she unalived the daughters, he told detectives that his wife had unalived the daughters and that he was having an affair and no longer to be wanted to be with her. But prosecution do say that events were a lie, and he did later admit to it. Shanann and the girls were found on an oil company's property. The girls were submerged in the 400s. And what was the motive? Cindy Watts, Chris's mother, said she believes her son's story that he deleted Shanann after she deleted the children. So, there's still lots of stuff floating around on this case. Let me know what you guys think down below about your thoughts. How did this happen to such a unsuspecting wife and daughters? Heartbreaking, heartbreaking. And to think that the girls took that drive with him. I do not believe for one moment Shanann did not hurt her babies. I agree with you. I agree with you, friend. She didn't. She got caught via cell phone. So, guys, thank you very much for being here with me. If you enjoyed a little bit of an update, one of the many, many documents on this case, let me know. And, we can take some more of a look into this case and read between the lines and see, I personally think that Kessinger was the motive. Let me know what you guys think. And let me know if you want to learn some more about this case. I mean, it's heartbreaking. Two little girls, rest in peace, his pregnant wife, Nico and Shanann. So, guys, once again, thank you for being here. May they rest in peace. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.